Hi, this is Mike Brown, owner of Death Wish Coffee Company. Welcome to Fueled by Deathcast.
I love Jeff, but sweet and hot. Whoop, Mr. Motorama coffee spot.
Death Wish Coffee presents Fueled by Deathcast, the world's strongest podcast. With your hosts, the incredible Jeff and the amazing DMAN.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's Fueled by Deathcast. I am the incredible Jeff.
And I am the amazing D-Man.
And together we are happy to talk to you once again. And as always, you can find us on deathwishcoffee.com/deathcast. And we're on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Music, MySpace, Podbean, all the places that you normally would listen to podcasts. That's where we are.
So don't forget to subscribe and comment if you're on iTunes. It always helps us out. So, yeah, tune in. Here we go.
Science!
So, first and foremost, I always have to thank our wonderful voiceover man, Brock Powell, BrockFox.com. He's making us laugh every single time he starts off our science segment.
Yeah, you can't be in a bad mood with Brock around.
Not at all. And this week, a little bit towards the theme, which you're going to hear later on, we've got something pretty exciting happening in molecular science. Scientists at the University of Manchester have produced the most tightly knotted physical structure ever known. But this is on a molecular level. Basically, to get a little really scientific for you, D-Man, what it is the knot, they created a knot that is 8 crossings of molecules that is 192 atoms closed in a loop. And what they did is think of knitting a sweater or a scarf. Mm-hmm. They basically took the atoms and they knitted them together in a structure that's tighter than any physical structure that we have ever created with science.
So would they just find a scientist with little tiny fingers?
Yes, exactly. The researchers led by Professor David Ley in Manchester School of Chemistry developed a way of braiding multiple molecular strands, enabling tighter and more complex knots. Now, what this is going to do is this is going to literally lead the way for an entire new generation
of tanks.
Of advanced material. Because one thing that's being used a lot in not only molecular biology, but also in medicine, is spider silk.
Oh,
and
for what?
For the application of bandages, for the application of antibiotic release. There's all sorts of different breakthroughs that we're utilizing spider silk for. But also we utilize spider silk for material as well, because it's such a tensile type of material.
Because it's so fine?
It's so fine and it's woven so thick. But now we can take those actual molecules from something like that and weave it even thicker. And it's crazy to think about. So you can make something like spider silk to be twice as strong as steel by bonding it this way. And so just think of the materials, the flexible materials we're going to be able to make.
So it's stronger than steel, but it's flexible?
Oh, yeah.
That's so weird. We're going to make some awesome police armor, pretty much.
That's one of the things that is already being talked about, because one of the materials that we use that is made with braided material is Kevlar.
Yeah.
And obviously Kevlar stops bullets and stops knives and stuff like that.
Sometimes.
But with this type of scientific breakthrough, we're going to be able to make that much more stronger Kevlar or rope. Or, that kind of thing. So it's pretty interesting that, and this is brand new. This actually was been researched at the end of last year, and it was just published in the Science Journal. The actual, it's titled Science on January 13th. Just happened.
Wow.
So it's braiding a molecular knot with 8 crossing. It's the first time it's ever happened, and scientists are very, very excited because, like I said, it's ushering in an entire new era of really, really strong, really flexible materials that we're going to be able to produce from this.
Wow, that's so cool. It's like it's a molecular revolution.
It is. It really is. And it's funny because when you think about it, 192 atoms, like that's the head of a pin almost, you know. I mean, you can't even fathom it.
Yeah.
But when you start applying that on a molecular level to actual things, you know, that the strength becomes exponentially greater.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
So did they have like a new machine to create this?
Well, actually, Professor Lee actually explained it like this. He said, we tied the molecular knot using a technique called self-assembly, in which molecular strands are woven around metal ions, forming crossing points in the right places, just like knitting. And the ends of the strands were then fused together by a chemical catalyst to close the loop and complete the knot. So kind of like I did explain.
So like knitting and glue.
Really, like, yes, exactly. They used metal ions as kind of like their template, and they kind of knitted it around them and then glued them together with a chemical catalyst.
I can just see like the scientist like sitting around his house trying to figure out like, what am I missing? There's a link that I'm missing.
Yeah.
And he sees his grandmother like knitting in the corner of the room, and he's like, Eureka! I figured it out.
Grandmothers are helping to further science every single day. So thank your grandmother today.
Thank you, Grandma.
What fuels you?
What fuels you, Jeff?
Well, this week we have a really exciting guest, and
I was so pumped to have EJ Snyder on.
Yeah, we're gonna be hearing from him later on in the episode, and it really kind of our talk with him really, you know, opened up a really interesting theme, I think, DMAN, and that's the idea of going through life and taking risks.
Yep.
And it's not just. There's two ways of looking at this. There's the difference between taking the immediate risks in life towards the long-term life-changing risks.
Yeah.
And immediate risks, I can definitely say, both you and I have done some crazy things in our life.
Definitely stupid.
Yeah, I have definitely jumped off some incredibly high rocks into water with you, and have lived to tell the tale. And I have definitely surfed down a highway on a moving car a couple times in my youth, which I do not recommend. And
I might have driven too fast a couple of times.
Yeah, you know, and those are definitely immediate risks, you know, and they make you feel alive, and they make you
My
tell the
palms
story.
are sweaty just talking about it. It's
Totally.
it's fun. You get that rush,
Right.
And then when you're done, you're like, oh, I did it. But I think even bigger than that is what you were talking about, is taking those big life-changing risks, like quitting your job
or moving to a new area, or it can really, it's hard, especially as you go through life, to just change everything.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, getting a new job, if you're looking for it, you know, you're making those caveats to do that. Or if you're going to go get a new apartment or buy a house, you're obviously making those right steps to get there. But like you said, you know, like to take a risk, to just be like, I'm going to uproot myself and leave my job with no plan and do that. And I know actually that's something that happened to you.
Yeah, I worked in a dental lab for over 10 years, and it was the family business.
Yep.
And I was supposed to take over that family business, but it was obviously something that, even though it was lucrative and I was good at it and I didn't mind doing it, I didn't love it.
Right.
And
it didn't want to get you, it didn't fuel you to get out of bed in the morning.
No. And that was exactly it. I remember a few times just, you know, sitting around just being like, I just don't want to go to work. There's nothing that makes me want to get up, get in my car, leave, and get there. And you start thinking, like, what am I going to do to get myself through the day? And once you start thinking things like that, it's bad news.
Right.
You know, I think that's how some people end up getting into drugs.
Yeah.
And certain thought patterns that are unhealthy for you. But yeah, I left that job with no plan, just knowing that I had a great support group of friends and family around me, that I'd always be okay. And, you know, I'm very grateful and lucky to have had that. But it was not easy to be like, I'm leaving. You just got to do it. And
that was a huge life risk.
Oh,
But you
man.
were looking at the long term. You're like, in the long term, I don't want to stay at this job. So I know I need to leave, but I don't see the immediate next step in my path.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's tough to even see what's in front of you, and you always want that safety net, but that safety net's not always going to be there. But
Right.
you know what? Every time I've made a decision like that in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure you can back this up, it's improved the quality of life
Totally.
tenfold.
Totally.
I am so much happier than I was when I was in the family business. And it took a lot to make that break emotionally, but in the end, it's just doing it, you know?
There's something to say for anyone in life, for anything you're talking about, whether it's a job, whether it's a new car, a new house, even just a new outlook on life. There's something to say about playing it safe versus taking risks. And I'm a big proponent of you don't feel alive unless you're actually taking risks. Now, I'm not saying that everyone needs to jump off that mountain, every single time that the opportunity presents itself. Because
Stop jumping off mountains, people.
Yes. Because there are times, obviously, where playing it safe is the right course. But
Yeah.
challenging yourself, pushing your boundaries, and taking those risks, more often than not, you're going to find out, like you said, it's going to make you feel more alive, and it's also going to better your life.
Yep.
And you're going to find stuff out about yourself that you didn't know.
Yeah.
And that's a real big thing, in what fuels you and what should fuel you.
We would not be here in this room talking to each other with other people listening to us unless we made those risks, those life-changing risks. And
Yeah.
man, I couldn't be happier that I did that, because I get to sit here with you and talk about
Exactly.
cool science shit, man.
Exactly, D-Man. And I mean, and it doesn't have to be even huge scary stuff, just like you said. To bring it full circle, a podcast is a risk.
Yeah.
We're taking a risk, and obviously it's not a life-defying risk or anything else.
Yeah,
but
there's no pit of
but-
nails that are going to pop up if we podcast wrong.
Right, but we're talking to each other, but we're talking to all you listeners out there, and you're listening to us, and we're putting ourselves out there, and that for some people, that's very hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, you always run the risk of, like, if I say something dumb, that's out there forever now.
Forever.
Especially in this social media world, and there is risk there.
Yeah, and as you all are going to learn as you continue to listen to Fueled by Deathcast, I say dumb things all the time, and you'll be able to keep a running tally of all the dumb things that Incredible Jeff has said, and hopefully
I
we'll
hope
make
there's
a t-shirt or
somebody in
something.
a lonely, dusty room just making tallies of every time you say something. Oh, there's another one.
Me too. I hope so too. Oh man, but yeah, again, what fuels you should be life itself, and life is about taking those risks and pushing your boundaries, and bettering your life. And speaking of bettering your life, I know Death Wish Coffee Company is actually doing some stuff to better everybody's lives.
Yeah, we've always been a fair trade organic coffee, which, for those of you that don't know, fair trade means that the people growing the coffee and harvesting the coffee are making fair wages to support their families,
Right.
and be able to do the things that they need to do. Organic being that there's no pesticides, it's organically grown, and if there are pesticides, they're organic pesticides,
Right.
which is naturally occurring.
Right. None of that Agent Orange stuff.
Yeah, and we do a lot of things like work with other green companies.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, I brought in some 100% recycled boxes from a company called Pratt,
Which is awesome.
Yeah, and they're really cool because one thing that they do is they have their whole recycling process, but there's a lot of sludge and crap that comes off of it that can't be turned into boxes. Well, they burn that stuff off to fuel their factory.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's as green as it can be over there, and we love being a part of companies like that.
Well, basically, what you're talking about is how it's hard to have a company, any company, and be as green as possible, and to be something that is protecting the environment when you're making so much waste.
Yeah.
But what's incredible is and your job at Death Wish Coffee is to seek out places like this,
Yeah.
like Pratt and that kind of stuff. And I know we've also talked about on the podcast how Death Wish Coffee is starting to implement more biodegradable death cups, correct?
Yep. Yeah, we're working on compostable death cups. Mostly we're searching out a bag that can be both compostable and biodegradable, and we're getting that off the ground. That's all there. So every day we're trying to make steps to a more sustainable green company that's not making a big carbon footprint on this earth.
And that's what it's all about, We're trying to provide everybody with the most highly caffeinated, delicious coffee out there, but we're also trying to keep the earth safe and good for everybody, so we can continue to drink coffee for ever and ever and ever and ever
and ever.
The Death Wish Death List.
All right. Well, this week we lost Anthony Armstrong Jones. He was 86 years old. You might know him as the first Earl of Snowdon. He was the husband to Princess Margaret, who is Queen Elizabeth II's sister.
I don't know what Snowdon is.
It is a title. It's Snowdon is a place. It's a title like the Prince of Wales or the Prince. He's the first Earl of Snowdon.
Sounds fancy.
Yeah, he did a lot more than just be the husband to a royal. He was a very famous photographer. He's known for his portraits of royals, obviously, but also his work in the fashion industry and also documenting inner city life in Britain and the UK. His photos have appeared for years in Vogue, Vanity Fair, and also in many different museums. And his most famous works are portraits of the Queen Elizabeth II, obviously, J.R.R. Tolkien, Laurence Olivier, Twiggy, who is a famous fashion model, and many more.
Is a fashion model named Twiggy?
And also, in his life, he was very interested in architecture, and he co-designed the aviary in the London Zoo.
Oh, that's cool.
So he did a lot of different things throughout his life, and which is I always think is interesting because a lot of times when people are of royal descent or the royals, that's kind of all they're remembered for, like, oh, he was a prince or he was, or she was a queen or whatever. But he did a lot.
That guy was out there doing stuff.
He did a lot of stuff. Also this week, we lost William Peter Blatty. He was 89. If you don't know his name, you definitely know his most famous work. He is the writer of The Exorcist. He's a very celebrated novelist. He's writing many more novels than that. He's also an award-winning filmmaker and screenplay. He wrote the screenplay, adapted the screenplay of his book for The Exorcist, won the Academy Award for that. And he also directed the third installment, Exorcist 3, which was based on his other novel, Legion, which was the actual sequel to The Exorcist. And unfortunately, we lost him this week. In a death wish you a happy birthday, though, we'd like to wish a happy birthday to actress Katie Sagal. She's going to be 63 if you don't know who she is. She was Peg Bundy on Married with Children, Leela on Futurama, Gemma on Sons of Anarchy, and a little-known fact, she actually got a career as a backup singer for Bob Dylan.
That's crazy, man. She's done a lot, and you think she's kind of like, seeing her as Peg Bundy, you're like, oh, she's that.
She's that, right.
And then her doing the voice acting for Leela in Futurama, you're like, oh, that's cool. And then Gemma in Sons of Anarchy, for those of you who haven't seen it, she's pretty badass in that, and she's still around doing cool stuff. That's crazy. She was a backup singer for Bob Dylan.
Yeah, she was a backup singer
recently, or
oh no, that was in the beginning of her career. She did a lot of different backup singing for different people. She actually was also just featured in the sequel to Pitch Perfect 2 as a singing mother. So she was getting her singing chops back in there as well.
And Sons of Anarchy, every now and then there's like, a sad moment, so somebody dying or like a funeral or something, and the background music is a song that she's very obviously singing.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun.
She does a great job.
That's awesome.
It's pretty fun.
Also, we'd like to wish a happy birthday to Buzz Aldrin. If you don't know Buzz Aldrin, he is an American engineer, former astronaut, very famous in the NASA circle. Did so much for the lunar module, Apollo 11, the whole nine.
He's got an awesome name.
Yes, Buzz Aldrin. And finally, happy birthday to Michio Kaku. He's going to be 70. He is, an American theoretical physicist, futurist, popular scientist, right up there with Neil deGrasse Tyson and Stephen Hawking.
He's a brain melter for sure.
Yeah. If you've never read anything by him, it's pretty mind-blowing stuff. And first time this year, 2017, we're going to do a roast.
What are we gonna roast, Jeff? This is a good one. We talked about this a little bit off pod, but didn't get too into it because I just started to get worked up way too early.
So we every now and again we like to roast something that both D-Man and myself think is just, why are you putting this into the world? And this week it's a movie, and if you haven't heard of this movie, it has got one of the funniest titles I think ever. It's a horror movie, and it's called The Bye-Bye Man.
No, it's not The Bye-Bye Man.
Oh, you're right.
Which would sound a little bit smoother. It's The Bye-Bye Man.
The Bye-Bye Man.
I can't even take anybody seriously who says that, let alone a horror movie with a man named after it. It's just ridiculous.
We are not alone in wanting to roast this movie. It has a pretty low score of 27% on Rotten Tomatoes at this moment.
This came out on
Friday the 13th. Yep. And here's the little tagline to really get you going there, D-Man.
Okay.
People commit unthinkable acts every day. Time and again, we grapple to understand what drives a person to do such terrible things. But what if all the questions we're asking are wrong?
Who wrote this?
What if the cause of all evil is not a matter of what, but who?
The Bye-Bye Man.
The Bye-Bye Man. The tagline is, don't think it, don't say it, or the Bye-Bye Man will come and get you. This is directed by Stacy Title, who directed such other winners as Snoop Dogg's Hood of Horror. And, yeah, no joke. And the Bye-Bye Man, the title bad guy there, is played by Doug Jones, who some might remember as Abe Sapien from Hellboy, and also the Silver Surfer from Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer.
So here's the thing right off the bat after watching the trailer.
Yeah.
And I think this is a problem with current horror movies in general. You start watching the movie, and they faintly show the demon or monster or killer or whoever it is.
Yeah.
And you get kind of freaked out. You're like, what is this thing? And you only see it out of the corner of your eye. And then like halfway through the movie, they show the thing.
Yeah.
And it's so dumb looking.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, and I think that's what made classic horror movies so good, because they didn't have the technology to make anything realistic looking. Mm-hmm. There was zippers everywhere.
Right.
So they could only faintly show whatever the what would you call that? The
monster.
Yeah.
Yeah. The evil thing.
So in this movie, like even halfway through the trailer, they start showing
the Bye-Bye Man.
The Bye-Bye Man.
Yeah. Oh God, I want to laugh every time we say that out loud.
And just like I said in the trailer, I first started watching it, and it's like this dark thing in the corner of the room, and it like kind of comes at you and disappears, and it's kind of scary.
Right.
And then they show it, and it's like it looks like the Leprechaun. Remember that horror movie, The Leprechaun?
Oh, totally.
The dude's face looks exactly. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
It is. It's so dumb, Jeff.
I don't understand the idea between the new version of horror movies where they need to have this cerebral type ideal behind the evil thing. Again, you brought up classic horror, and I think that's why classic horror works so well. Horror villains like Jason or Michael Myers or Hellraiser or those types of things, they don't need to be explained. They're just evil coming after you to kill you, and you better run from the evil thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it worked. And now so many movies are all about like, well, this evil thing is because A, B, and C, and it's like, and you lost me at that point.
Let me spell it out for you.
No. And I saw this. I saw a trailer for this, and it just every time I see the name of it.
Do you think they were? It's got to be a joke, right?
I don't know.
It's the same director of Snoop Dogg's Hood Horror.
I don't know. Look, Collider magazine is quoted on the movie poster as saying, "The Bye-Bye Man is a terrifying boogeyman for a new generation."
What is Collider magazine? Everybody stop reading it right. Nobody reads magazines anymore, period, let alone Collider magazine. Get that shit out of here.
Oh, man.
Do they just make magazines so shitty movies can quote them?
Oh, I love it. I love it. But yeah, so I mean, make your own opinion, I guess, if you're really into a movie called The Bye-Bye Man.
If you like this movie, I'm not shitting on you.
Yeah.
If you like this movie, be who you are, be unique. I love you for who you are.
Yes.
But to me, in my opinion, this movie's a piece of shit.
Yeah. I'll tell you a quick story before we break. Actually, when I was younger, we used to have a really cool video store. And for you younger listeners out there, a video store was something that you could actually go to and rent VHS tapes and take them back home with you to watch and then bring back to the store after 5 days.
I kind of miss doing that.
Yeah, me too.
You went out in a way that was like, I don't know what I'm going to get.
Right.
Let's like check out certain sections and see what pops out.
Well, one of the sections that both me and one of my best friends, Mr. Eric Donovan, was the horror section. And we had a great video store that had on every Friday, they had a 5-movie for $5
Is that
deal.
the Saratoga Drive-In movie store? Yeah.
Yes, and so we would go and we would get 5 horror movies with the most ridiculous covers, because back then with the VHS, they'd always do some crazy cover to entice you to get in there.
Yeah.
And I look at this, The Bye-Bye Man, and I know the 13-year-old me and Eric Donovan would have totally seen this on the shelf and been like, yup, that's one for this weekend.
But like as a joke.
Oh, totally.
So maybe, I don't know, maybe that's an avenue that horror movies can take to make a few bucks
Maybe.
now.
Yeah, maybe.
Like they try to go for that real tongue-in-cheek.
This isn't winning any Oscars, that's for sure. Oh, man. Well, that was good. We haven't done a roast in a while.
We got to do more of these.
We definitely
My
do.
blood's pumping now.
We're going to take a short break and give you this week's update with some juicy Death Wish Coffee Company news.
DMAN's Death Wish Update. Brought to you by Death Wish Coffee.
And for the moment you've all been waiting for.
Yeah, so what do we got this week, D-Man?
So if you're listening to this right now, we have the new Clean Canteen available for Death Wish.
That's awesome. I love the clean canteens. They're so versatile, so awesome. They keep your coffee hot forever.
Forever.
Yeah,
I've definitely had, like, when I first started working here and first started enjoying coffee for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
I made myself a cup, put it in the Clean Canteen, drove to work, got to work, forgot I had coffee. A couple hours later, was like, oh, I have coffee. Went to drink some, burned my mouth.
Yeah.
Was like, what
Yeah.
is this science? This is crazy.
It's so great. So yeah, so a brand new clean canteen with a brand new Death Wish logo on the front of it. Available right now, the week of January 19th. So get yours today.
Yeah, man. And Clean Canteen, one of those lovely companies that we like to work with inside of the States. I believe they're out of Seattle.
Cool.
Great company. I'm pretty sure they're really concentrated on being a green company as well.
That's excellent.
So all around sustainable company, awesome company.
Excellent.
Great products, and can't wait to bring this back out to you guys.
Also this week, we teased you with this last week on the podcast, but available this week, if you haven't heard, are the super special variant bags of Death Wish coffee that tie into the Ubisoft For Honor video game. And they're really cool looking. You can get a samurai, a knight, or a Viking. Yeah, that's right. And it's a limited edition bags, and they're a limited run of these, and they're available on Amazon and deathwishcoffee.com. So don't delay on those.
Yeah, we released these a couple days ago. So I'm not sure how many are left, but they're flying out the door. We did not make that many.
Yeah.
It's very, very limited, and
Get those.
they look super, super cool. And yeah, that will hold 12 ounces.
12 ounces of coffee
of
and
delicious Death Wish coffee.
And like I said, with every single bag that you get, no matter what's on the cover, on the side, you're going to have a cool little code that you'll be able to type into Ubisoft when you actually get the game on Valentine's Day. For Honor comes out February 14th, and that code will get you some in-game points for some cool stuff. You know, if you're gamers out there, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So a couple of releases coming up right around the corner. I'm really excited about, and everybody's been really excited about. The Nitro Brew.
Here it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah. So we finally got the boxes nailed in. They're sent to our fulfillment center,
Yes.
and they're being sent out very, very soon.
Yes. So look, keep looking on the social media, keep watching the emails, keep watching the website.
Keep listening to the DMAN Death Wish update.
Yeah, that cold brew will be available before you know it.
And also the coffee scoop that
Yep.
looks like a skeleton key.
Yeah.
We're re-releasing that. We're having we had Crosby and Taylor make a bunch more, so we can have them throughout the year, so everybody can enjoy the amazingness of this awesome coffee scoop.
Awesome. Well, that was a whole mess of stuff this week, and I'm sure we're going to have even more for you next week.
Cheers.
We now return to Fueled by Deathcast.
This week, I'm so excited for this guest, and I know you are too, D-Man. We got to talk to EJ Snyder.
If you don't know who EJ Snyder is, he is a amazing celebrity survivalist. He's in the very first episode of Naked and Afraid, and he's in the first season of Naked and Afraid XL, which is a whole mess of naked people trying to survive in the jungle. It's hilarious, and he is my hero.
It's incredible. He also was on Dual Survivor on the Discovery Channel. And honestly, if you are out in the wilderness and you need to survive out there, he's the guy to have in your corner.
Yeah, he's all about being inspired, being motivated, and that being contagious so other people could possibly listen to him and survive out in the middle of nowhere.
Secret code unlocked. Discount of death.
And this week, the secret code is SURVIVE.
And we thought it was super, ultra, mega appropriate to put a discount on our survival kits, our Death Wish survival kits, which have a couple of mugs in there, a couple of matchbooks. I like to think of EJ Snyder choosing this to be
his one item on Naked and Afraid. Yeah, that'd be pretty great. But if you type in SURVIVE at checkout and you're going to buy one of those survival kits this week, you're going to get a pretty awesome discount on that survival kit. So you're going to want to get that this week.
We love EJ so much, and we didn't want to pull any punches for the release for him. So, type in SURVIVE, get this kit for a discounted price, and tuck in to listen to this awesome guest on the Fueled by Deathcast.
The Fueled by Death guest.
We know from talking to you before that you have been on a couple of the different survival shows, and you teach Survivalist. As a child, when you were a kid, like going way back, were you like an outdoorsy kid? Were you always drawn to kind of like, being in the woods and playing around like that? Or did this kind of come later in life?
Surprisingly, I grew up in New Jersey, outside New York City. And my dad was a big outdoorsman. So he used to take us on the weekends, escape the city. He was a big hunter, trapper. He'd take us out camping, fishing. And we do a lot of hiking. We'd go out there with him all the time. Mm-hmm. And I was involved with scouting a little bit. But when I'd get back home, me and my kid brother would find ourselves down there near the local marsh or near a park or a creek, wherever we could find something, because we just loved being outside all the time. And we would be playing with stuff we should have been playing with, like water moccasins and, just crazy stuff. We'd get all these we had all these muskrats and things we'd try making traps to catch them out of whatever we could find. And then we really were into building all kinds of crazy forts and weapons. And so it was something in me that I didn't realize was just dying to get out. And so when we would go up to Vermont in upstate New York, where my father had family, and we would be in the outdoors out there on the farms in the country, something just sung to my soul. And so as I, went through life and going through different things that kids go through, when I hit 19, I wanted to be an actor stuntman. My mother said that was a bad idea. I would be starving. And as a poor kid, I really had no way of getting to college. My folks had pretty much split up before I was 10. And, there was no computers then, so there was no path for me to figure out how to make it in life. So I joined the Army. They promised me some college money. I wanted the adventure, and in I went. And while I was in the Army, I attended Ranger School, and that's where I got my first taste of actual formal survival training. And so I really liked being in the infantry, being outside. I got into field crafting and doing all kinds of things we used to do in the bush as an infantryman, hiking, getting into that stuff. I really got involved with rock climbing and mountain climbing with my brother before I went in, but then I really started ramping up these things while I was in. When I had off time, I'd go canoeing and rafting and all these things. So when I became a ranger instructor in 1996 down there in the Florida Ranger Camp, I was training rangers how to survive swamps and water. I was the primary survival instructor. Like, hey, you got to go to survival school. I'm like, oh, what do you do there? And they're like, well, all those survival things. You learn how to rub sticks together and make fire and all this other stuff. But it was actually military survival school, which we all know is SEER training, which is hiding behind enemy lines and learning about how to not just survive the wilderness, but not getting caught by the enemy and having bad things happen to you. So I really took to it. I went back, and it became like a self-quest for me, because during those times we had the Y2K come in.
Yeah.
Everybody thought the world was coming. I was like, man, I need to be on point. I've got a wife, 2 kids. I got to be able to figure out how to keep us alive. So I took to it. I did a self-study to become the best survivalist I could all around, not just a military survivalist, but all aspects, become more of a hybrid survivalist. And I also went to tracking school, and I was also teaching tracking then. So fast forward to where I retired from the Army after 25 years and serving 2 different wars in Iraq. I served in the Gulf War in 91, went back in 2004 for 15 months in Iraqi freedom the second time. I got out and had a contract survival job waiting back at my school, the SEER school that I went through, to teach soldiers how to survive behind enemy lines. And I did that for 6 years as a contractor. Before I got out, I was in Hawaii. I started doing some acting and stunt work. Was on a bunch of different projects. You can look me up on IMDb under EJ Snyder and see all the little things I was involved with. Not all my projects are there, but some of the more known ones. And next thing I know, the TV world and my survival world crossed paths. I was a big guy. I was big into Survivor and that show, and I applied for it, and I was in the final casting. They cut me at the last minute, and which was their loss. It was whatever God's plans were for me. But what I didn't know was Discovery came looking for me. I did a couple different shows. I did some. I was on the History Channel's Patent 360 as a commentator. I did the Can You Survive a Horror Movie with the Chiller Network as a survival military expert. And then Discovery saw that, and they called me up to try out for Dual Survival when they were first replacing Dave Canterbury. So I went out there as a last-minute replacement for a guy that couldn't make it with 4 other people. And when the smoke cleared, Discovery Channel liked Joe Tedeye over me, and I wound up. They said they'll give you a call, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I wound up doing a show for TNT called 72 Hours, and it was a survival adventure race. Ran through the Fijian jungle. Episode 7, and I had 2 people that you meet your partners on the starting line, and you're running through this exotic place looking for a $100,000 briefcase. First team there gets to keep the money and split it. Well, I had 2 people that should have never left the living room with me. So I'm dragging these 2 people, keeping them fed, keeping them hydrated, and leading them on this adventure. So if you've got nothing better to do, download it on Amazon.com. It's a great 45-minute video. You won't be disappointed. And from there, when I was sitting in the hotel, I got a call from Discovery. Said, hey, we got a really crazy new survival show, and we want you to film the pilot, because if you go out there and don't die, we think everyone else will be okay. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll go out there. And so I find myself in the middle of Tanzania, Africa, with a strange woman I don't know, 1 item each, and I'm used to going out with several items to survive with. And so I have a knife, she has a pot. And we made history. We went out there, first ones to do it. Nobody, not even the crew, knew what was going to happen. And so as I'm throwing my clothes into the back of this vehicle, I'm like, wow, I'm thinking to myself, this is a bad idea.
Yes. Yeah, it seems like the worst idea ever, just to trounce around in like a very angry, hot place with absolutely no clothes, but especially no shoes. That's the craziest thing. Did that tear up your feet or what?
That was the worst thing. As I'm throwing these clothes in the back of this truck, I'm thinking, what's my mom going to think? And I'm like, I hear these lions in the background, and I'm like, wow, well, they already paid me. And I see this figure off in the distance. It's my partner. And the vehicle drives off, and as the dust clears, I take my first 5 steps, and I've got like 12 thorns in my feet. I'm thinking, this is not to be. And off I walked, and little did I know I was going to do that 2 more times after that, and be the only guy to do it 3 times. So it really tore my feet up. If you watch the first episode, Terror in Tanzania, I wound up on the second day getting an acacia thorn into my like the ball of my feet, not the ball, like the arch area, and I think it was my left foot. And man, those things go in real easy because they like to keep the animals off of them from eating the trees, but they come out very brittle and they break off. And so about an inch into my foot, I had this thorn in there for like must have been 15 days or something. The timelines are a little bit off on the edit, but it damn near killed me.
Wow.
It infected that. I was about a couple hours from getting the septicemia into my bloodstream, and the doctor was like, well, why is this guy, how's this guy still living? He should have been dead a week ago. And the producer, Steve Rankin, who was Bear Grylls EP for Man vs. Wild, well, he walks up to him, and his Brit, he's a Brit, so he's pretty frank, and he goes, well, mate, I'll tell you, God doesn't want him, and the devil won't take him. The devil's afraid. So here he is, and so there I was.
That's crazy. So I mean, it's one thing to do what you did in the armed forces, and thank you so much for your service and everything you did with the Army. But it's got to be a different thing doing that on a reality television show. What is it like? I mean, you're fighting for your life. You're almost dying, like you're saying, but then there's a camera crew with you. Like, I mean, is it surreal? It's got to be like so surreal.
Yeah, the craziest thing was as I was walking and leading Kelly and I on the second day to the water hole, I looked back across the open savanna. We were in the Serengeti Plains, and I see Kelly back there, and what a trooper she was, moving along, and I'm there, and behind us is not only do we have our 6-person camera crew with us, that's the producer and the camera and the sound and the guide, but behind them is about 15 clothed executives from the production and the Discovery, and I'm thinking, and we're buck naked, us two, and I'm thinking, well, what kind of a sight is this? And it dawned on me, it's like, wow, if this is what history is, and what we're doing is we're on the cutting edge. None of us at the time thought that I thought it was a stupid title, Naked and Afraid. I thought it was not going to go anywhere, but like I said, I'm getting paid. I'm already good. So, but thank God I was wrong, and it was a great thing. But I put my mindset in a way that if a camera guy was drinking a bottle of water in front of me and eating a ham and cheese sandwich, it wouldn't have mattered, because I was there to challenge myself in survival situation and make it as real as possible. So that's how I approached it. I know other people have angst and they talk about food all the time and all that stuff. I just look at it as I do a lot of train as you fight. Like in the military, we train as we fight. They say more sweat in training, less blood in combat. So I apply that mentality to my survival training and when I'm out there, because, I want it to it is real, and I want to experience it to the full max and test myself. So, if I don't eat that day, it's on me. Nobody else but me.
So did they eat sandwiches in front of you, the crew?
No, kindly they did not. So they would go off site when it was time for their meals or their snacks or their drinks. Occasionally they'd have water on them because they're out there with us, and the camera crews are what really amazed me on filming these adventure docuseries type survival shows, because in a lot of cases they're putting themselves at risk many times, just like you are, where they're stepping, they're filming, they're not watching, they don't see, there might be a snake there or whatever, and sometimes they're on the side of cliffs with us trying to manage very heavy gear and capture the scene, and they're a credit to their field. But occasionally drink water from me, but that stuff never bothered me, because in the military you're taught to compartmentalize a lot of feelings, emotions, and memories, and thoughts. So I just put my mind in the scenario, just like I did many times in my training events in the military, and it's like, hey, I'm in a survival scenario, and if I don't eat or drink, it's on me. If I get wet or cold at night, it's because I built a crappy shelter, and that's a lesson for me to learn.
That's nuts. So I'm a huge fan of Naked and Afraid, and there's something I've personally wanted to ask you for a while, because you've been on both Naked and Afraid and Naked and Afraid XL, which was a big group of people instead of just 2 people. And the thing that I've always wondered is that, is it easier to survive with just one other person who's not conflicting with you as much, or is it easier to survive with a big group of people who are all helping out? But there's the other side of it where it's like there's a lot of personalities, there's a lot of conflicts that could happen. What do you think was more challenging, just with one other person or with the big group of people?
The bigger group, because there's more dynamics to it. There's pros and cons to both, and I teach this stuff all the time. Group survival, everyone has to come to terms that not everybody can be the quarterback. But when you've got alpha types and all these big egos and they think they're the best leaders and all that, just because they think they are, it doesn't necessarily mean they are. When you lay your proverbial resumes out on your background, your job fields, your life experiences, even, not necessarily just because I was the oldest, I was the best. It's just I have a more, military type approach to survival, but I'm very understanding of people. But, if a group, sometimes groups, people, they don't know they need to be led and they don't know it. And they don't admit it. And then if I come in there and I'm not to the philosophy of, hey, let's just sit around and conserve energy and just, do what we have to just to make it. For me on the 40-day challenge, personally, I was not just out there to make it. I thought maybe this might be my last time going out on this challenge. I need to learn as much about myself, and my survival skills need to be tested to the max. So I'm going full pedal to the metal. I've got a overabundance amount of energy for someone of my age, which I'm now 51, and people half my age have a lot of trouble keeping up. And it's just my work ethic, how I grew up, my military training, and I was very thankful to be paired with Jeff Zouch, who is pretty much a brother to me. He really took a place in my heart. My brother passed away some 24 years ago now. And he filled the void there. And we're so like-minded thinking, we didn't even have to we could just look at each other and knew what we were thinking. We didn't have to talk about things. And we were wanting to be A-type predators, full beast mode, get out there, primal screams and all. And people would get on me about, oh, you're too loud, you're this, you're that. Well, when I yell, it's a primal release of joy, it's anger, it's praising heaven, praising God for the victories that I've gotten. And I want my brothers and sisters that have left before me up there in Valhalla or heaven, wherever they may be sitting, waiting for me to join them, hopefully another 100 years from now. But yeah, I want them to know I'm down here still doing it. So, but getting back to your question, with a group, when people start getting hangry, realities collide. You're not going to necessarily like everybody, but there's got to be some compromise. And in a group scenario, you have more people to do more work and get more things done. But you have to have one leader. Only one person can be really directing the shots, and you can be a little democratic about what you're doing. But sometimes, there's no room for, all right, let's take a vote. We can't vote on everything. Sometimes we just need to be people of action. And for me, the group scenario, you have a leader, someone that's fully the best qualified to do that job. And for me in camp life, I don't let anybody go out by themselves because that's a hazardous thing. When we were in the military, we always had battle buddies. But in survival, if you're out there on your own and something happens and no one knows where you're at, you have no communication devices, you need to be with somebody else that can help you. And so I always had a philosophy of group survival where you make everybody work in pairs, preferably with someone they get along with, and get more bang for your buck. Have two people sit back at camp life, cut firewood, tend the water, keep work on the shelter, and send out, let's say we had 8 people, send out the other 6 in pairs, some to go fishing, some to go hunting, some to go gathering. That way, and you rotate those duties to keep your brain from, getting burnt out. On the other side of the coin, when you're just with 2 people, it's a lot, you don't have to gather as much food, but there's less people to do the work. And, in a lot of cases, it's just you and that other person to make a compromise. And it's a little easier. There's not as much drama between 2 people, especially if you get along. Now, we have seen on regular Naked Afraid 21 Days that we've had some opposites out there that just can't figure it out. And like I said, in any team, there's got to be a quarterback, whether it's two people or more, and there has to be some compromise on both sides to give and take, and get along. You got to give a little bit. So, go along to get along sometimes. Sometimes you're not going to always get your way. And the sooner people realize that, and the quicker you can gel together as a team, no matter how small or how big, the more productive you'll be.
That is excellent. So, I mean, you've done it by yourself. You've done it in the military. You've done it as a private citizen. You've done it on reality television with small groups and big groups. And as you said, you even have had moments where you've almost died from it. What fuels you to continue to go out there and to practice this survivalist thing? Like, what fuels you to do that?
The one thing I didn't see coming, I thought I was going out to do something pretty cool the first time on Naked and Afraid, and just do this really cool survival adventure, and this is it, and here I come. What I didn't know was God was going to humble me, and he was going to break me down. And the reason I go back out, because every time I go out, I learn more about myself as a man, and I've changed as a man since I've been out there for the better. I've evolved as a survivalist and became more capable. And I get tested. And I know people say, how do you train mental toughness? And mental toughness is something that, you can be born with. It's that killer instinct, that will to live that's in everybody. And I say everything in life is about mindset. So if you have the right mindset and you want to test yourself to the max, then you just have to keep pushing yourself, because, those challenges we go through in life, those experiences, I always say I never lose. I either win or I learn.
Excellent.
And so through learning, one gets to really understand themselves and what they can take. And since I was out there, I believe that I become a living, breathing example for people to look at and say, watch how this guy operates, and I need to apply that to my life, to the survival situation. We're out there and people can learn from us, and it could save their lives. It's proven already that these shows have saved lives. And for me, I just keep going back out because I want to be the best I can be. So when that day comes to where, hey, it's on, the world does a Fosbury flop, the people that, of wealth and power become the lowest part of the food chain, and folks like myself actually become the richest people on the planet, because we've been preparing and understanding, one, who we are, what our capabilities and skills are, and been preparing for that day so it's not a shock to us, and that we go into action. And for me, God's charged me to do several things. One, be an example and a motivator and an influencer to others, to be a leader, whether it be in my community or at times of challenge, and to teach survival and help others through that. So, and that's what I'm living and doing now. That's what's 3 different times on Naked and Afraid, and now through Dual Survival, really testing my skills.
That is so inspirational, man.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think the strangest thing about being a survivalist is that you put yourself closer to death than anybody else. And the thing that I'm wondering is, how many times have you dodged death?
The funny thing about me is I have the Harley Davidson of life going down the road, and I have a sidecar. And I try to keep death right next to me. That way I always know where that little bastard is, so he can't sneak attack me. He can't kill me, because Murphy's out there, and Mother Nature's going to throw swings at you. So I've probably cheated death more times than I can count, but I think it's because God's grace to me is I fear nothing, for God puts my steps before me. Excellent. So I have nothing to fear. So when it's, when you have God, there's a great quote from this, the movie, the new Star Wars movie, Rogue One, that the blind Asian guy's out there, and he says, I fear nothing, for the Force guides my steps. And yes. So that's a little religious in there, and I'm very spiritual, but I've cheated death probably more times than I can count, and that's okay. People have told me, why do you do these things? A lot of my former employers are like, you're taking years off your life, and I beg to differ because I believe I'm adding years to my life.
That's so cool. So you've been through all these different experiences all over the globe, through the military and through your reality television. Are there any places on your list that you haven't been yet that you want to kind of, I'm not saying maybe even try to survive in, but maybe just kind of visit and go? Like, is there any like bucket list place that you haven't been to yet?
I don't have a bucket list. I have my family laughs at me because I have this to-do list that never ends.
Oh, awesome.
So I'm always adding to it, because if you have a bucket list, that means it's going to end sometime. And I don't plan on ending ever.
Excellent.
I want to try and be like a vampire and live forever. But I know that's not true. But so I don't make a bucket list, but I do have a list. And on that list, my good friend Ivan Castro, he officially retired yesterday. He was a major in the United States Army, former Green Beret, started out as an enlisted guy. He has a book out now called Fighting Blind. Again, that's Fighting Blind.
Cool.
If you really want some inspiration, read Ivan Castro's book, Fighting Blind. It's amazing bestseller. The guy got blown up when the enemy mortar came into his compound in 2006, and he's been pushing forward as a blind man, doing some amazing feats. So he inspires me to want to do more and do better. Well, he's going to be heading to the North Pole in 2018, and I've volunteered to hopefully get on that team with him to go up there and see the North Pole.
So cool.
I've never been to Australia or New Zealand, and I'd like to get to those places, and I'd like to visit the United Kingdom, all aspects of it, just because I've never been there. I've been to a lot of places, but I've never been to these couple locations. So, and I want to go where no man walks, because if you can be where no man is supposed to be walking, you might get to see something pretty cool and maybe untouched by man.
That is really cool. So I know you do a lot of traveling still, and appearances and stuff like that. Is there anything coming up in the near future that you can tell us about that you're going to be doing?
Well, here very quickly on January 17th through the 21st, I'll be in Vegas at the annual SHOT Show. Okay. SHOT Show is a gathering of government, military, law enforcement, professionals, hunting professionals, shooting professionals, and it's a great event. So I'll be out in that area along with my partner Jeff Zouch. We're going to be at the Tops Knives booth Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So that would be the 18th, 19th, and 20th. From 10 to 12, because my knife, the SXB Skull Crusher Extreme Blade, is made by Tops Knives, so we'll be doing some booth appearances there. On my website, www.ejsnyder.com, or you can follow me on Facebook at my fan page at EJ Skull Crusher Snyder. I post where I'm going to be at quite often. So we're lining up. I've got a meeting next week to line up a bunch of Comic-Cons. I've got a bunch of survival shows that are coming up that these expos that I'm going to be at. So we're plugging the calendar right now as we speak. So that's going to be getting posted very soon. And I've also so I've got some big meetings coming up, but I'm doing a commercial for the As Seen on TV network channel for live fire gear and day one gear. And we'll be shooting that in February, so that'll be coming out very soon as well.
Awesome. All sorts of exciting stuff. Well, once again, man, thank you so much for talking to us, and thanks for all of your service with the military and all the stuff you've been doing with reality television. Like you said, I'm a fan of Naked and Afraid too. You've taught me a thing or two about being a better person and hopefully surviving out there if I ever find myself out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's countless stories, and I know I talk a lot, but there's some really great stories out there where these TV shows have actually saved some lives. And one other story is I love Death Wish coffee. I'm drinking some right now, and I love your guys' brand. I mean, I love what you guys represent, and meeting you guys up at the New York City Comic-Con last year was a great highlight of my year.
That was a blast. We had a blast, man.
I love coffee. And I've always been a part of coffee, so coffee's always been in my life. And let me share this one quick story with you. I'm such a coffee addict. When I was in the Gulf War, I was moving up and down the line when we had halted, looking to see if anybody had some coffee. I had my canteen cup out, and I smelled some coffee being brewed but I didn't know where it was. So I come up on the guy from Philadelphia, my buddy Dan, and I'm like, Dan, what are you doing? He's like, oh, it looked like he was doing his laundry because I see these green socks in this big Bedouin pot, and there's all smoke coming out of there. And I'm like, what are you doing, your laundry? He's like, no. And those green socks had coffee grinds in them, and he was using them as filters. And that was like the best cup of coffee I ever had on the planet because it saved my butt out there. And I dunked my canteen cup in there and got me a swig of that stuff. And I was like, gosh, I hope he washed those damn socks for real. But oh well.
That's incredible, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, we're gonna be talking to you more because, like I said, Death Wish loves you too, man. So thanks again.
Well, a lot of great things coming up in 2017. Like I said, go to my website, ejsnyder.com. Follow me on Twitter or Instagram at EJ Snyder 333. I'm always posting stuff. I'm very active, and my YouTube channel will be getting up big and heavy. If you want to purchase my knife, go to topsknives.com. Look for the SXB Skull Crusher Extreme Blade, and there's another tool I just signed off that's pretty cool. It's a 12-in-1 survival tool. It's called the Outlast Recon Survival Tool. Those links are also on my webpage. And I do a lot of charity work for kids with cancer. And I've actually, if you go to reality.com, look up the celebrity guest list, look for my name. If you feel in your heart to donate to fight breast cancer, I'd appreciate it. Guys, thanks for the time.
Hey, man, not only are you inspiring, you're incredibly entertaining, and I'm glad that we're aligned with you, and I'm so happy that we had you on our podcast, man. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And like I said, I do teach survival, so classes are getting posted. I motivationally speak and appear, but I always said two things. What I found out in the Army as being an instructor and as a speaker, if you really want somebody to listen and remember and learn, you got to be a couple things. You got to be loud, you got to be informative, and you got to be a little bit humorous. And when you can put those things together, it makes for a good lesson and really good TV.
This has been Fueled by Deathcast, a Death Wish Coffee Company podcast production. Thanks for listening.